The judge who sent McKenzie Sharilla to prison, likely for the rest of her life, called her hell on wheels. That was, of course, because she drove 100 miles per hour into a wall, killing her boyfriend, Dominic Russo, and his friend, Davion Flanagan. Here's officers from Strongsville PD in Ohio responding to the scene on July 31st, 2022.
She couldn't deny it. Not a single word of it. The conduct report was time-stamped, the footage was reviewed, and the officer had documented everything in precise clinical detail. What happened at 6:06 p.m.? What happened at 7:42 p.m.? And exactly what was shown to an unapproved visitor on a monitored prison video system. McKenzie Sharilla, convicted killer, Netflix documentary subject, self-described innocent woman wrongfully imprisoned. She sat at that hearing and admitted guilt without making a statement. Because there was nothing to say. The camera had seen everything. We will come back to that moment. But to understand what it means, you need to understand how we got here. On July 31st, 2022, in Strongsville, Ohio, a car traveling at 100 miles per hour struck a wall. 2 people died. Dominic Russo, McKenzie Sharilla's boyfriend, and Davion Flanagan, his friend. McKenzie survived. Prosecutors said the crash was intentional. Her defense said she suffered a medical episode and was deeply remorseful. The judge who ultimately sentenced her did not appear to find the remorse convincing. He called her hell on wheels. She received 2 consecutive sentences of 15 years to life, one for each man she killed, and was sent to the Ohio Department of Corrections to begin what may be the rest of her natural life. That is where this story was supposed to end. A tragedy, a verdict, a sentence. A young woman facing the consequences of what a jury decided she did. But McKenzie Sharilla had other plans. Or perhaps, more accurately, she had no plan at all.
Called McKenzie hell on wheels, and in the Netflix documentary The Crash, McKenzie tried to portray herself as being remorseful. But guess what? Records from Ohio's Department of Corrections make it look like McKenzie's been raising quite a bit of hell during her brief time behind prison walls. And I'm going to go through all of it for you. The sexual harassment claims, the flashing of her breasts, and much more. A conduct report is the formal mechanism by which prison staff document rule violations by incarcerated individuals. Think of it as the institutional equivalent of a paper trail. Every infraction, every hearing, every punishment, every response given by the offender, preserved in writing. When a parole board eventually considers whether to release someone, that conduct record is one of the most important documents in the room. It tells the board not just what someone did before they were incarcerated, but who they chose to be while they were. McKenzie Sharilla's conduct record, as of the time of this reporting, runs to 58 pages. 58. And what is in those pages is not a story of a young woman struggling to adjust to an unfamiliar environment and gradually finding her footing. It is something closer to a case study in precisely the wrong choices, made with what appears to be a breathtaking indifference to consequence. It starts small, as these things often do. May 2024. Sharilla is found. Officer wrote, on the above date and approximate time at 11:40 p.m., inmate Sharilla was seen in the second-floor day room talking on her tablet. This is the second incident that has occurred where inmate Sharilla has been found in the day room after rec has been closed. Inmate Sharilla is being charged with 5.6, being out of place. In response, McKenzie said, I just didn't know. She admitted guilt and the hearing officer found her
in the second-floor day room at 11:40 p.m. after the area had been closed. Not the first time. The charge is 5.6, being out of place. Her response? I just didn't know. Guilty. Minor punishment. Move on. October 2024. Officer Bryce conducts.
It's on the above date and approximate time. I, Officer Bryce, was conducting my random bed searches. During my search on inmate Sharilla, I found 2 pair of altered state pants, a fan with the name and number of an inmate's name who is redacted, crossed out, and Sharilla written on the same side, and 4 nude magazine pictures. For this, I will be charging her with a 12.3, possession of another inmate's property, and a 12.7, possession of contraband. Sharilla told the prison staff, I did have the fan and pants, was turned into quartermaster, and I was charged. The hearing officer wrote, contraband fan destroyed, pictures will be returned, and pants returned to quartermaster. Sharilla was found guilty and lost commissary.
A routine bed search and finds altered state pants, a fan with another inmate's name crossed out and Sharilla's written in its place, and 4 nude magazine pictures. The charges are possession of another inmate's property and possession of contraband, violations 12.3 and 12.7 in the institution's disciplinary code. The fan is destroyed. She loses commissary for 30 days. Guilty again. November 2024. She is stopped in
2024 at approximately 12:40 p.m. Officer Graham and I were stopping incarcerated individuals for random searches. Inmate Sharilla was stopped and voluntarily handed over a block of cheese and a package of noodles from her hoodie. Inmate Sharilla was also not wearing a state shirt to CFS, making her out of dress code. In addition, she was wearing an altered state hoodie with beads on it. I am charging inmate Sharilla with 16.3 for coming to CFS out of dress code and 12.7 for possession of contraband. Officer Schoenlab called me from Hale and advised that inmate Sharilla did have a state shirt on underneath 2 hoodies. Regardless, inmate Sharilla deliberately had her collar tucked in and shirt to make it appear she did not have a state shirt on. Again, Sharilla admitted guilt and she lost
during a random search and voluntarily hands over a block of cheese and a package of noodles she was hiding in her hoodie. She is also charged with being out of dress code. But here is the detail worth pausing on. When the officer checks, she does have a state shirt on underneath, hidden under 2 hoodies, with her collar deliberately tucked in to make it appear she was not wearing one. Her explanation is accepted, technically, but the deception is noted in writing. Guilty. Loses access to packages for 30 days. 2 days later, the same week, she is stopped again, this time for an altered blue sweatshirt that had been modified into a hoodie. Her response? She admitted to having it, but said she didn't alter it herself. Loses commissary for another 30 days. Now, ask yourself something. If you were serving 2 consecutive life sentences and your only realistic path to ever leaving prison was demonstrating to a parole board that you had genuinely changed, would you be hiding cheese in your hoodie? Would you be getting written up twice in the same week? The answer to that question is the entire story. Because here is what the conduct reports reveal about McKenzie Sharilla that no Netflix documentary will tell you. She does not believe she is guilty.
Here's why. I'll tell you why. So in the federal system, they're called shots. She doesn't believe she's guilty. So if any injustice is being done, it's against her. So why would she follow rules that are meant for inmates who are actually criminals who have broken the law, describing herself being in with crazy people? She does not identify with them. She is not one of them. She is innocent. So this injustice is coming her way. Therefore, why should she be held accountable to rules that shouldn't apply to her because she didn't anything wrong? She maintains hope. I assure you, she lays on her rack, the long day behind her, expecting at some point to get a phone call from her lawyer that says, you prevailed on appeal. You're coming home tomorrow. She is expecting that. And when that news doesn't come, and it's unlikely that it will, the reality is going to set in. I'm going to be here for a very long time. And as she gets older through introspection, she's going to realize how foolish and embarrassing and disgustingly she has acted since going to prison. She can turn it around. We can all become better than decisions of our past, but it's time she begins to make better decisions. She just doesn't think she's guilty.
When you read through these conduct reports and you see the Netflix documentary, The Crash, you look at all of this big picture, the 58 pages of conduct reports, and you're seeing she doesn't think she did anything wrong. So she's in prison and she's like, these rules don't apply.
Not of the crash, not of the deaths. She maintains, according to the expert who reviewed her record, that the rules of this institution do not fully apply to her, because the rules are designed for people who actually committed crimes. And in her mind, she is not one of those people. She is waiting for her appeal. She is waiting for the phone call from her lawyer that says, "You prevailed. Come home." Every day she wakes up in that facility is, to her, a continuation of an injustice being done to her, not a sentence she is serving for an injustice she did to others. That psychology explains everything that follows, and what follows gets considerably worse. We are now roughly at the midpoint of this story, and if you think the cheese and the altered hoodies are where the conduct reports peak, they are not. Not even close. Stay with this. April 29th, 2025. Sharilla is written up
Again, this time for violating the rules on video visits. The officer wrote, "While reviewing video visits, I witnessed that inmate Sharilla was doing a video visit with an ex-inmate that was released. I noticed that the video ID name for the visitor was not who the person that was doing the video visit with. The visitor's name is redacted, and that is the approved visitor on dots. The actual person doing the visit is, and the name is blacked out, is not an approved visitor and should not be visiting Sharilla. They have had over 100 video visits. The visitor has been made applicant and is blocked on GTL. I have attached snapshot of the video showing that the visitor is, and the person's name is again redacted." McKenzie attended a hearing, didn't make a
for violating video visit rules. A video visit system, in this facility called GTL or Viapath, allows incarcerated individuals to conduct monitored video calls with approved visitors. Approved. The system logs who is on the approved list and flags discrepancies. An officer reviewing the footage notices that the person appearing on Sharilla's screen is not the approved visitor listed in the system. The actual visitor, whose name is redacted in the report, is not authorized. They have conducted over 100 video visits this way, using the approved visitor's account name while the unapproved person conducts the actual call. 100 video visits through a monitored system without being caught until now. At the hearing, McKenzie does not make a statement. She admits guilt, loses access to electronics for 30 days. The very next day, she is written up again.
McKenzie was accused of sexual harassment and wearing her clothes improperly. The corrections officer wrote, "I approached IP Sharilla while she was in Case Manager Jones's office to take her to the restroom to see if she was properly dressed. IP Sharilla was previously in Mr. Ream's office, and he had asked her for her hoodie as it was altered and considered contraband. IP stated that he couldn't have it because she wasn't dressed properly under her hoodie. When I told her I was taking her in the restroom to make sure she was dressed properly so I could take her hoodie, she stated, 'If he got an erection from the way I'm dressed, that's his fault,' except she used another word for erection. As she got to the door of Ms. Jones' office, she told Ms. Jones to come with us to the restroom because she didn't feel comfortable. When we got into the IP restroom, IP Sharilla unzipped her hoodie and her state shirt was completely unbuttoned with just a sports bra on. She was instructed to button her shirt and give me her altered hoodie. The whole time we were in the restroom, she was very disrespectful and talked with a loud tone, asking if this was all we were worried about, was her altered jacket. This IP has had several conduct reports for contraband clothing. She has been given new state uniforms in exchange for the altered clothes. Her hoodie was clearly taken in on the sides and was very form-fitting on this. Sharilla was quoted as saying, 'I went to the bathroom with her. I never said that. I did what they told me. I was not being disrespectful.'
This time, for sexual harassment. The conduct report is methodical and specific. A corrections officer approaches Sharilla in a case manager's office to escort her to the restroom to verify she is properly dressed so that a contraband hoodie can be confiscated. Sharilla is not cooperative. She makes a comment, explicit enough that the officer paraphrases it in clinical language, suggesting that if the officer who had asked for the hoodie was aroused by the way she was dressed, that was his problem. She uses a word the report does not repeat. In the restroom, she unzips the hoodie. Her state shirt is completely unbuttoned, sports bra only underneath. She is loud, according to the officer, dismissive, asking if this is really what they were worried about. The report notes this is not her first violation involving contraband clothing, and that she has been given replacement uniforms on multiple occasions. Her response in the record? "I went to the bathroom with her. I never said that. I did what they told me. I was not being disrespectful." She pleaded guilty to the charges. And then, because 58 pages requires
as well. They said that they found her wearing dangle earrings with charms stolen from the kindware room. She had bottles of paint, a bottle of wax, 11 paint tubes, a plastic bin, 20 plus rocks, homemade pillows, altered painted Vans shoes, a pillow with no receipt, 2 green t-shirts, fake eyelashes, 1 neck scarf, 2 long sleeve t-shirts, pom-pom earrings made from items stolen from the kindware room, all kinds of stuff. She had bags of beads, all of this stuff that she wasn't supposed to have, and she accepted the conduct report. She says, "I didn't steal anything. I got it from so-and-so. I like to paint cups. She gave me the stuff. I paid 10 each for the kindware." And then it was referred to the infraction board.
A great deal of material. There is the theft incident. Earrings with charms from the kindware room, a prison craft and donation space, worn on her ears. And found in her cell, bottles of paint, a bottle of wax, 11 paint tubes, a plastic bin, 20 plus rocks, homemade pillows, altered painted canvas shoes, fake eyelashes, a neck scarf, 2 long-sleeve t-shirts, pom-pom earrings made from materials taken from the kindware room, bags of beads. Her response: "She didn't steal any of it. She liked to paint cups. Someone gave her the stuff. She paid $10 each for the kindware items." She later pleaded guilty. The prison crisis manager who reviewed
that, she later pleaded guilty to it.
The best response she gave on these incident reports is when there was no response. Because anytime she actually chose to respond, there was, sure, she said guilty, but there was no acceptance of responsibility. It was just blaming or excusing. It was never her fault. So some of these on its own, one disciplinary infraction, for example, taking food out of the chow hall or going into another dorm without permission, prison staff may overlook this, but this isn't like an out of character for her. The problem is her character in prison is continue to cheat and take shortcuts, engage in disciplinary infractions. I'm frankly a little surprised the prison's given her so much room to continue to engage in it. This isn't like 1, 2, or 3. It is dozens, and it's going to get to a point where she's going to get exactly what she doesn't want.
This record put it plainly. The best response she ever gave on a conduct report was no response at all, because every time she chose to respond, she said guilty and then immediately blamed someone else. It was never her fault. The character she has displayed inside that institution is the same character she displayed before she got there. Cheat, take shortcuts, and when caught, find a reason it was someone else's problem. And now we arrive at September 2025.
I want to dive right into these prison records. This latest conduct report, or one of these conduct reports, this one is from September 2025. So McKenzie had been there over a year at this point, and we're going to put this up on the screen. It says, Officer Miller was reviewing ViaPath visits. This is the video visit system. It was a person on there with McKenzie who was not approved. And it says, during this visit, multiple inappropriate things took place. The visit that took place at 6:06 p.m. shows McKenzie Sharilla showing her breast to the visitor. Then at 21:08, the visitor shows a sex toy, and then the visitor shows her breast. And then at 7:42, the visitor shows her breast with a sex toy. So it's very descriptive here, Justin. McKenzie Sharilla could not deny this. She couldn't deny this at all. So what are your thoughts on this conduct report in particular?
The video visit, the one she could not deny. Officer Miller is reviewing ViaPath footage. The approved visitor on the account is one person. The person appearing on screen is someone else, unapproved, uncleared, unmonitored as far as the system was designed to track. And during that visit, multiple things take place that are documented with timestamp precision. At 6:06 p.m., Sharilla exposes herself to the visitor. Later in the call, the visitor displays a sex toy, then displays it again. McKenzie Sharilla, serving 2 consecutive 15-to-life sentences for killing 2 people, conducting an unapproved sexual video visit on a monitored prison system. She couldn't deny it. She did not try.
It's not unusual, unfortunately. Look, disciplinary infractions are very common in prison, but I use the analogy of the speed limit 65 and you're going 75, you might be okay. So there are things staff in the prison will overlook because there are so many things to be worried about. But when you engage in destructive behavior like this that threatens the security of the institution, it's like going 125. So it could lead to loss of good time in segregation. I've heard her complaining in videos with her mom that she doesn't want to be in protective custody. But of course, in a situation like this, you end up in protective custody because you need to separate her from other prisoners that are behaving. Since she's been in prison, it is a total case study of what not to do. No identification with victims whose families are destroyed. It's all about her image, her ego. And as a result of that, well, it doesn't help she has enabling parents as well. As a result of this conduct, forget about getting out of prison in 15 or 20 years.
Silence at the hearing. Admitted guilt. Lost access to electronics for 30 days. There is a concept in prison administration sometimes called good time. The mechanism by which an incarcerated person's sentence can be reduced through demonstrated good conduct and program participation. It is, for someone serving 15 years to life, one of the only paths toward a realistic parole hearing on the earlier end of the eligibility window. Every conduct violation puts distance.
So if I were advising her, I'd say you need to understand that there could be a path at some point 20 or 30 years from now where you could be released from prison. It feels like a very long time, but it's coming. And if you began to make good decisions, I accept full responsibility for my conduct. I identify with victims. If I were them, I too would want punishment and retribution. I hope they take some pleasure knowing that I'm going to be in prison for the next 2 or 3 decades. Instead, she's building this record through disciplinary infractions and just not caring, making herself the star. Netflix doesn't. It only adds on to the feeling that she's some celebrity or superhero. She's putting herself in a position where she's eventually going to go in front of a parole board and she's going to say, I'm sorry, I've changed. I won't do it again. I've learned my lessons. And a very cynical parole board is going to say, cool, where is the record? What have you done to demonstrate why you should be released? Because I can assure you the victims' families are going to be sitting there in that hearing 15 years from now. When she begins to embrace that reality, she may make better decisions. Or some people with long sentences say, you know what, who cares? The sentence is too long. I ain't never leaving. I'm going to live my life. If I want to have sex toys and video visits and have fans around the world lionize me, cool.
Between an inmate and that possibility, every documented pattern of deception tells the parole board a story about who this person chose to be when no one they cared about was watching. McKenzie Sharilla's first realistic parole hearing is in 2037.
There's no doubt. If you look at people who have gone to prison throughout history, Adam Clausen, Malcolm X, my partner Michael Santos, who served a quarter century. I served a measly 18 months, kind of as an arrogant, entitled, white-collar offender who thought I was better than others until I got to prison. We can all become better, but not through happy talk or cliches, by building a record. She should be journaling. Who am I? What am I learning? What would I do differently? If I read a book, why did I read it? How will the book help me moving forward? How can I develop and grow a network? The most important thing moving forward is there's got to be some acceptance of, I killed 2 people. Generations of their families will never be the same. It's not about her suffering. When she begins to think of other people and the impact she's had on others, she can begin to get on track, but it's not going to come through words. She's got to build a documented record over time that she could defend. And what does that look like? Over the next 30 days, no disciplinary infraction. Perhaps write an open letter to people that I'm young, I'm immature. My parents enable me. I am too focused on celebrity. All I do is think about myself. And I see the consequences of those bad decisions. I'm looking at life in prison. Here is how I will do better. And then do it. But I will say it's hard in prison. It's hard to say you're going to do something, then you're down, you're depressed. You can't even imagine a release date 15 years into the future. But guess what? If she were to get parole in 15 or 20 years, she would still be a very young woman with the rest of her life in front of her. I believe with good men. I've said that about everyone you guys have ever interviewed me with. Sunny Balwani, Elizabeth Holmes, Sean Combs. We can all become better, but it doesn't require talk. We've got to build a record. It's the only way that
12 years from now. And the question is not whether the conduct reports will be there. They will. The question is whether by then there will be anything else alongside them. Any evidence of genuine accountability. Any documented acknowledgement that 2 people died and their families will never be the same. Any record at all of a person who chose, at some point, to stop performing remorse for the camera and start demonstrating it in the daily accumulation of decisions that no documentary crew will ever film. Here is what I want you to take from this, because it matters beyond McKenzie Sharilla, and it matters beyond this case. Parole boards are not moved by words. They are moved by records. A person who says, "I've changed," with nothing to show for it, is asking a panel of professional skeptics to take their word for something that their documented behavior directly contradicts. The people on those boards have heard every version of, "I'm sorry, I've learned my lesson, I won't do it again." They have heard it from people who meant it and from people who were performing it. The only thing that separates the two in that room is the paper in front of them. This applies in ways that extend far beyond prison. Any institution that has to evaluate whether to trust you, a court, a licensing board, an employer, a judge considering your conduct during litigation, is doing the same calculus. They are not listening to what you say about yourself. They are reading what the record says about you. The record you built when you thought the consequences were manageable. The record you built when you thought no one important was watching. McKenzie Sharilla has been building her record. It is 58 pages long, and every single page of it was written by her. The families of Dominic Russo and Davon Flanagan will likely be in that hearing room in 2037. They will not need to say very much. The record will speak for itself. Whether that is justice or whether it is simply consequence, you can decide that for yourself. But the difference between those two words is the most important legal and moral question this case raises, and it is worth sitting with.